welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Webster Tarpley here in Washington, D.C. Now, let's switch gears. Let's go into domestic, and we're going to have some stuff on the Wall Street sales tax and the need to put that at the center of all these agitations. You cannot win a struggle in any city, county, state, or nationally unless you specify who should pay. Who should pay for the depression? And the overwhelming answer of 75% of the American people, 81%, in that NBC Wall Street Journal poll, the millionaires, the fat cats, the speculators, the Wall Street hyenas, the hedge fund operators, the zombie bankers, they caused the depression, they pay. But you got to find a way to express that as a policy, not just as a slogan, and that's the Wall Street sales tax. But now let's look at the mayhem being caused by reactionary and fascist Republican governors in particular. I'm calling them the subversives, right? The anti-national wreckers of the United States. The Koch group is putting on ads, or either Koch or somebody similar is putting on ads about the Chinese are talking about how the U.S. went into debt and they bought up the debt and now the U.S. works for them. That's not how the fall of a country works. The fall is when you try to build your 100 modern nuclear reactors to replace the old relics, when you try to build your 100,000 miles of fast rail, when you try to rebuild your interstate highway system, when you try to build your 1,000 hospitals and train your 250,000 doctors, there's a Republican governor saying, no, we're not going to pay. We will not be taxed. My fat cats will keep their money. And the most obvious is this question of fast rail. You want to have a modern economy? You better have fast rail. You want to survive in the 21st century? You need fast rail. You need maglev, actually, beyond fast rail. So who are the national saboteurs? Who are the subversives? Who are the ones giving aid and comfort to the economic competition around the world? It's Governor Rick Scott of Florida, who has rejected $2.5 billion to build a high-speed rail link from Tampa to Orlando because he doesn't want to pay the small share of the state of Florida in that. So who does he join? He joins Scott Walker, reactionary fascistoid of Wisconsin, and he joins Kasich of Ohio, truly a pitiful specimen of a governor, but reactionary as blazes and ideologically a fanatic. I once walked into Kasich's office in the House of Representatives about 20 years ago, and it was very soon after Bush the elder had broken his pledge on read my lips, no new taxes, and I had an appointment to meet with Kasich, who was at that time a Republican in the House. So I went into the House office building, got into his office, and the guy was cursing a blue streak. It was a cascade of profanity against Bush, against the liberal Republican George H.W. Bush. So this guy has got a temper problem. He's the guy who had a tantrum about the state trooper who stopped him because he was speeding. He thought he should get a special pass. So these Republicans, the four horsemen of subversion and the apocalypse, Scott of Florida, Walker of Wisconsin, whom we know otherwise, Kasich of Ohio, who's now pursuing his union-busting plans, and, of course, the Garden State Goering, New Jersey's answer to Hermann Goering, Reichsmarschall and Luftwaffe chief. That would be Chris Christie, who won't build the tunnel under the Hudson River. So Scott, Walker, Kasich, Christie, they are worth more to the enemies of the United States than several divisions. They're worth more than quite a few cruise missiles or 20 megaton bombs. And this is now going on across the spectrum. We now also have to look at the what's going on in the we want to continue with these governors. We have some interesting stuff. E.J. Dionne, writing in the Washington Post, has some idea of the politics of this, and it is now the question of the Reagan Democrats. We have people who are blue-collar. They are workers. Many of them are in unions. They're sympathetic to unions. They are in the Great Lakes area, the Midwest, the Upper Midwest. They are heavily ethnic. Their background can be Italian or Polish or Eastern European, Catholic, ethnic, Great Lakes-centered. The Reagan Democrats. They are economically in favor of the New Deal. They're part of the 75 to 80% majority of the American people who strongly support New Deal measures, Medicare, Social Security, taxing the rich. They just need to educate that into the Wall Street sales tax. The people who are against that, the 20%, the Tea Party is a 15 to 20% lunatic fringe. People who have been convinced by the Austrian school, by the Chicago school, and by similar poisonous, obscurantist, subversive foreign doctrines. So E.J. Dionne talks to Tom Bancroft, the mayor of Milwaukee, saying we're talking about the Reagan Democrats and how to mobilize the Reagan Democrats, because the idea was that the Reagan Democrats were horrified by the counterculture, by the postmodernism, by the ultra-left social policies of the Democratic Party from the McGovern time in the early 1970s. They therefore turned to Reagan in 1980. They correctly felt that working people, unionists, normal people with family-centered values had no place in the ultra-left, bohemianized Democratic Party. So they turned to the Reagan Democrats. But now, these reactionary and fascistoid Republican governors are pushing the Reagan Democrats away by directly attacking them, by a frontal assault. This is not the clever, deceptive, treacherous method of Obama or Cuomo or Jerry Brown or these people. No, this is a raving frontal assault on unions and pensions and wages and working conditions. And it's really an attempt to use this monstrous Taft-Hartley Act to essentially wipe out unions in the states where they exist on the model of those reactionary southern low-wage right-to-work states where the people have used, the reactionaries, the local elites, the local oligarchs have used the Taft-Hartley Act to wipe out unions there. One of the key things that would be important to do in this situation, which Trumpka at the AFL-CIO will not do, and Obama will never dream of it in a million years. He'll be against it. We got to repeal the Taft-Hartley Act. We got to go back to the Wagner Act that says you have a right to a union, and if it's a union shop, yes, indeed, the employer will collect the union dues as part of the paycheck. And the United States was better when we had powerful unions to defend the interest of the middle class, to counterbalance the overweening, exorbitant power of people like Koch and Mellon Scaife and the reactionaries of the ruling class. So we'll talk about this in just a second. Back in a minute.